Howdy, 7th grade. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to work with inequalities with negative signs. I know we did some basic inequalities a couple weeks ago, so now we're going to look a little bit more in depth. And a couple weeks ago when we did these, we didn't have any negatives, and I took those out. I was like, that's not what we're doing, because negatives make everything a little bit trickier, so we're going to work on that today. But as usual, we're going to start with a little bit of review. We're going to talk about what we already learned about what to do with inequalities. So if we can figure this out, we should be pretty good to go for a while. So our review with inequalities is that we treat them exactly the same as we do as a regular equation. So if I have something like 3x minus 2 is less than, let's make that 7, what I would want to do is I want to get the x by itself. So my goal is always to get the variable by itself. So I'm going to write goal get x alone. So we're going to look and ask ourselves, what by the x do we need to get rid of? And the answer to that is I need to get rid of this 3 and this 2. So my options are either to divide by 3, because the 3 is multiplying, and the opposite of multiplication is division, or I could add 2, because the 2 is currently being subtracted. And I think it's a lot easier to add than to divide, so I'm going to start off with adding. So looking at this, I have 3x minus 2 is less than 7, and I'm going to add 2 to each side. When I do that, I have 3x minus 2 plus 2 is less than 7 plus 2, which tells me that 3x is less than 9. And now, I know I still need to get rid of this 3. It's multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division, so we need to divide by 3. I end up with x is less than 3, and that would be my answer. Let's do one more like this. I'll do it a little bit faster, and then we'll go on and see what happens when we have a negative sign in here. So if I have something that looks like, let's do 5x plus 2 is greater than 12. Let's see what happens. Again, I can either get rid of this 5 first or this 2, but I normally like to get rid of this number first. It makes life a lot easier. Otherwise, I'd have fractions running around. I know how much you guys love to deal with fractions. So right now, this 2 is being added. So to get rid of it, I'm going to subtract. I have 5x plus 2 minus 2 is greater than 12 minus 2, which would give me that 5x is greater than 10. Dividing both sides by 5, I have 5x over 5 is greater than 10 over 5. The 5's cancel, and I end up with x is greater than 2, which is pretty simple and works out pretty well. And just like that, I am done. So now we're going to get into the new stuff. New stuff. And there's exactly one rule that I have to get you guys to follow. And it's not that bad of a rule, but here's what it is. If we multiply or divide by a negative, we switch the direction. Switch has a C in it. Of our inequality. So that's all we're learning new today, is that if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to switch the direction of our inequality. I want to kind of look at why. So we're going to draw out a number line real quick. Let me do that in this color here. I draw out a number line. And let's just have the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on here. So on the other side, I'd have -1, -2, and -3. So I know that the number 3 is going to be greater than the number 1. That makes a lot of sense. 3 is bigger than 1. I hope we all know that. But looking at the negatives, -3 is actually less than -1. So if I make both of these negatives, -3 goes way over here, 1 goes there. I multiplied both sides by -1. And what happened was, because we just flip-flopped it to the other side of the 0, we reflected it over that 0. Now we have to change the direction of the sign, because the larger number, which was the 3, is now the smaller number, -3. So we're going to have to switch the direction of our inequality anytime that we have this negative number thing. I'll show you all what that looks like. If we have, quick example here, negative 3x plus 2 is equal to 11, what I'm going to have to do first, sorry, not equal to, that's not what I wanted. We're doing inequalities today. We'll make this less than or equal to. So negative 3x plus 2 is less than or equal to 11. What I'm going to do first is still get rid of this number. That does not change. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And I end up with negative 3x is less than or equal to 9. So plus 2 minus 2 goes away. 11 minus 2 is 9. Now what I want to do is divide both sides by negative 3. But when I do that, I have to pay special attention to this sign and make sure that it flops around. So now instead of having a less than or equal to, I have a greater than or equal to. And I end up with x is greater than or equal to 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. And just like that, I am done. So again, it's not too hard. We're just adding one extra rule. If we multiply or divide by a negative, we got to flip-flop the sign. And I'll do one more like this. So if I have negative x plus 5 is, let's do greater than or equal to 21. What I'm going to have to do is first get rid of this number here. I'm going to do that just by subtracting. So this was being added, opposite of addition, subtraction, so that's how I'm going to get rid of it. I have negative x is greater than or equal to 16. 21 minus 5 is 16. And now I'm going to, this x right here is being multiplied by negative 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this and actually write it as negative 1 times x. Negative 1 times x, which is exactly the same as negative x. So to get rid of negative 1, I'm going to divide by negative 1, because that's the opposite of multiplication, and do that to both sides. And after I do that, I've got to pay attention to my sign, and it's going to flip-flop the other way. Have an x on this side, and 16 divided by negative 1 is negative 16. And that's how this whole inequality thing works. And we'll see a few more problems like that in class. Please make sure you do the lesson practice. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.